A rebellion is brewing in Israel among former high-ranking officials, intelligence officers, and influential people. Today, a group of about 600 retired Israeli security service employees, including former heads of Israel's intelligence agencies, appealed to United States President Donald Trump, asking him to put pressure on Israel and its Prime Minister Netanyahu and force him to immediately stop the war in the Gaza Strip. Their argument is as follows. Hamas is already so weak that it no longer poses a threat to Israel. They see more danger in international pressure and even the isolation of Israel than from Hamas militants. At the same time, more and more sources are saying that Netanyahu has decided to annex the Gaza Strip, and Trump has reportedly already approved these plans after the failure of negotiations with Hamas. So, what is really happening? Let's figure it out in this episode. My name is Alexi Pitchy. Today is August 4th. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pitchy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, a group of about 600 retired Israeli security service employees, including former heads of intelligence agencies, appealed to the United States president to put pressure on Netanyahu and force him to immediately stop the war in the Gaza Strip. Next, I'll quote from the joint statement. In our professional opinion, Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel. Mr. President, your authority among the overwhelming majority of Israelis strengthens your ability to guide Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government in the right direction. Stop the war. And so, their appeal came against the backdrop of reports that Netanyahu is now insisting on expanding military operations in the Gaza Strip. Since indirect negotiations for a ceasefire with Hamas militants have reached a deadlock, let me remind you that Israel started the war in Gaza after Hamas terrorists attacked southern Israel on October 7, 2023. As a result, about 1,200 people were killed and 251 people were taken to Gaza as hostages. According to the Ministry of Health, since then more than 60,000 people have been killed as a result of Israel's military campaign in the Gaza Strip. Although this figure is difficult to verify or confirm. Now, the Ministry of Health in the Gaza Strip claims that at least 94 people have been killed in the sector in the past 24 hours alone. At least 24 of them died while trying to find help. But again, this is data from an authority controlled by Hamas militants. Therefore, this data may be unreliable or exaggerated since no independent observer can confirm or refute it. Entry to Gaza for journalists is currently closed by Israel. At the same time, according to the United Nations, the worst-case scenario of famine is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu rejects such statements, but they were confirmed and supported last week by United States President Donald Trump, who acknowledged that in the Gaza Strip. As reported today by the British Broadcasting Corporation, the latest intervention by former high-ranking Israeli officials who appealed to Trump came after Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants released videos featuring two emaciated Israeli hostages. The videos were sharply condemned by Israeli and Western leaders. And after the videos were released, Netanyahu spoke with the two hostages' families and told them that efforts to bring all the hostages back, quote, will continue constantly and tirelessly. However, here is one of the Israeli officials, widely quoted by local media, who said that Netanyahu is working to free the hostages specifically through the military defeat of Hamas. And this is where Israel faces international condemnation from its allies. The possibility of a new escalation in the Gaza Strip could further anger Israel's allies, who are insisting on an immediate ceasefire. Since reports of Palestinians dying from hunger or malnutrition in the Gaza Strip are now truly shocking the whole world. That's why part of society in Israel is calling to finally put an end to this war. And this point of view, among others, was clearly expressed in a letter to Trump by former Mossad chief Tamir Pardo, Ami Ayalon, former Shin Bet chief, which is Israel's internal secret service, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and former Defense Minister Moshe Ayalon. And now I'll give you another quote from this letter. At first, this war was just and defensive, but when we achieved all the military objectives, this war stopped being just. And now, former top military leaders are heading a group called Commanders for Israel's Security, which in the past has called on the government to focus on ensuring the return of the hostages. And here they go on. In this letter to Trump, they write the following: "Stop the war in Gaza." On behalf of the Commanders for Israel's Security, the largest group in Israel of former Israel Defense Forces generals, as well as Mossad, Shin Bet, police, and the diplomatic corps, we urge you to stop the war in Gaza. You did it in Lebanon. It's time to do the same in Gaza. This is what they are writing in a message to the President of the United States. Well, and here it should be acknowledged that in the past week, Israel has indeed faced growing international isolation as the large-scale destruction in the Gaza Strip and the hunger of Palestinians is causing outrage. And polls around the world really show that public opinion is becoming increasingly negative towards Israel, which puts pressure on Western leaders and forces them to take some action. Well, for example, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer have already been forced to come out and publicly state that in September they are ready to recognize Palestine. However, it remains uncertain what kind of pressure, if any, Trump will choose to exert on the Israeli Prime Minister. The United States President has consistently supported his ally Benjamin Netanyahu. And here, an interesting piece of news surfaced about a week ago. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu intends to present a plan for the full annexation of the Gaza Strip to the military political cabinet. Israel will announce that it is giving the Palestinian radical movement Hamas several days to agree to a ceasefire. And if they refuse, it will begin the gradual annexation of the Gaza Strip. First, the territories in the buffer zone will be annexed, followed by areas in the northern part of the Gaza Strip adjacent to the Israeli cities of Sderot and Ashkelon. The process will continue until the entire Gaza Strip is completely annexed. Netanyahu has already informed the ministers that the administration of United States President Donald Trump supports this plan because it sees no way out of the situation, since Hamas militants simply disrupted the last rounds of negotiations, and there is no sign at all that they are ready for an adequate ceasefire. And Trump, as you know, even stated that Netanyahu would have to make some tough choices in order to put an end to the war in the Gaza Strip. Well, and it's possible that annexation is one of the options. So that's the situation. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.